Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just got into the CFP and I'm a little bit long-winded there. Apologies for that. There's the auto bid format, there is the at-large format. I'm in favor of the auto bid format. I cannot believe I'm saying that, frankly. A year ago, I would have called myself crazy, but at the end of the day, I do think it helps conference races. I think it just makes the sport more fun all the way throughout the season, and I got to be honest, for me, it's the regular season that matters the most. So I'd rather help the regular season than help the playoff. I'm going to lean towards that auto bid format. But let's get into a little bit of a summer catch up because we haven't talked in quite some time. I haven't been on these airwaves in a little bit, so we got a couple of things to catch up on. And it's been a busy last week, really. So there's a couple of things just from this last week that have gotten a little bit wild around college football. The biggest thing, the biggest one of the bunch is Texas State is joining the Pac-12 in 2026. They have informed the Sun Belt that they will be leaving. We'll have to pay about $5 million to get out of that conference, but they'd be more than happy to do so. They're joining all the other states. Remarkably, it is Boise, Fresno, Texas, San Diego, Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado State. All of those are states for the Big 12, for the Pac-12 going forward. The Pac-12 lives, weirdly enough, a conference that, if you ask me 18 months ago, if the Pac-12 was going to be around right now, I'd probably tell you no. I probably would have told you that Oregon State and Washington State are going to take whatever offer comes to them, probably from the Mountain West, and that thing is going to be dissolved. No longer the case. They found their way out of the wilderness now. It's pretty much the Mountain West. You add Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Utah State, and Colorado State from that conference. So you're getting plenty of Mountain West flavor in there. I think you could be adding back those ACC teams that they lost a little bit ago because, frankly, I don't think Cal or Stanford leave if they're not in the situation where you just got to find a lifeboat at that point. So I don't think the Pac-12 is done adding teams. I think they will add back a couple of those teams, get to 10 teams in that conference. The reality is it's a very fun conference again. Cannot wait to watch this unfold. Now, wish these teams weren't moving around so much. Love the Sun Belt and the way it was. So hate that Texas State is leaving. Hate that the teams are leaving the Mountain West. But all things considered, the way we stand right now, I really like this conference. It's going to be a really, really fun conference. Now, it's not a power conference. I want to make that very clear. There's a lot of really good teams. And frankly, it could find its way up to that level. If I'm being totally honest, it's going to be kind of hard to get into those conversations with some of the other power conferences. But at the end of the day, they could find their way to that level. Coming in, it's going to be more of a group of six than back to the Power Five than anything else. But they might be the best group of six conference. I can tell you that. The last 3 years, I believe, they would have had the top ranked team in the group of five if you kind of take into account all of the different things. Boise State, obviously, last year. I believe it would have been Oregon State the last 2 years before that. So they would be firmly in the talks for that final, group of six spot for the CFP. Maybe they expand it to two spots for the group of six to make it a little bit more interesting. The Pac-12 is going to have a lot to say in the CFP going forward at the very least, probably from the group of six level. But overall, don't love talking about conference realignment just because it makes me a little bit sad. I love the Sun Belt the way it was, so don't love that Texas State is finding their way out. But at the end of the day, GJ Kenny and the Bobcats, they're going to be a really interesting team pretty quickly in that conference. I think they're going to be a top three team when they walk in there. It's going to be really fun to see what they can do over the next couple of years and maybe help elevate that conference right back up to the Power Five. It's just probably going to take a little bit of time. And we got to talk about this. I kind of wish we didn't have to talk about this, but it's a huge, huge thing that came across my Twitter feed yesterday. And Paul Feinbaum had a take that I'm not even sure how he came to it. I'll be totally honest with you. The take essentially went that Arch Manning is the best quarterback that we have seen since Tim Tebow came onto the scene in 2006. That's just not true. For like 10 different reasons, it's not true. But we'll start with Tim Tebow's not the best quarterback since 2006. Now, if you were just to amend those words just a little bit, Arch Manning is the most anticipated quarterback since Tim Tebow. Absolutely, I'm there with you. Arch Manning could be the next Tim Tebow. I don't know if I'm quite there with you, but at the end of the day, I understand where you're coming from. Arch Manning could be one of the best players that we've seen at quarterback in the last couple of years. Right there with you. Definitely is on the table. Saying he objectively is the best quarterback we have seen since Tim Tebow, which isn't even the best quarterback we've seen since 2006, is just ridiculous for a number of different reasons. And it goes back to something I've said probably every single time that I've talked about Arch Manning on this show and on any other platform that I've been on. Arch Manning's not going to be good enough this year. I can almost promise you he is not going to be good enough this year. I can almost promise you in that Ohio State game, he will make a mistake that will make Paul Feinbaum tweet, "Why did everyone hype up this guy to be who he is?" I can almost promise you that is going to happen at some point in this year. Paul Feinbaum will be the guy that says, "Why was everyone hyping him up when he was hyping him up?" I can almost promise you that's going to happen. It's not to say Arch Manning is a bad player. I think he's going to be incredible. He has so many great things about him. He has so many incredible attributes. He has really good tape from a year ago that maybe wasn't against the greatest teams in the world, but you look at that Mississippi State game, he did some really special things, especially with his footwork, especially with his confidence in the pocket. He did some really great things in that game. I think he's going to be a great player. I think he's going to do incredible things. I think he's going to lead Texas to multiple CFPs because I don't think he's leaving after this year. I think he's going to be in the Heisman conversation very, very readily, maybe this year and next year. He's going to be a really good player. He is never going to be what people want him to be. He is never going to reach the level because the reality is for him to reach the level of the way that people are talking about him, he has to win the Heisman, they have to win the national championship, and they probably have to go undefeated. That is remarkably unfair for a first-year starter. Regardless of how long he sat, regardless of the name on the back of his jersey, regardless of all the attributes that I think are going to come out and he's going to be an incredible player, it is remarkably unfair what we're putting on this kid's shoulders. If anyone can handle it, it would be Arch Manning, and I think he will be fine. I'm not necessarily saying this is going to tank Arch Manning's season. It's just to say, let's just take a chill pill. Let's just calm down for 2 seconds. Let's allow this kid to play a game because I think there's going to be a moment or two in the first couple of weeks of that season where it just doesn't look quite right. It doesn't look all the way there because that's the way it should look. I think the same thing about Julian Sayin up there at Ohio State. I think there's going to be a couple of plays in those games where you say, man, these two kids are absolutely off the charts talented. And then there's going to be a couple of plays where you think, yeah, that's why they, are new starters. This is their very first game, and it's showing right about now. So Paul Feinbaum is just wrong for a number of different reasons, but did want to bring this up because Arch Manning has a lot on his shoulders already. He has Manning on the back of his jersey, which is plenty. He has all of the weight of the world of one of the biggest fan bases and biggest programs in the entire country on his shoulders. And the media is pumping him up to be someone that he's just probably not going to be this year. He's going to be a really good player. I don't think he's going to be absolutely impervious to any mistake, and frankly, I think that's kind of what he has to be to not be a quote-unquote disappointment this year. He's going to be fine. He's going to be a really good player. I think he's going to be a Heisman contender even this year. But it's going to take time. Can we just give the guy a little bit of time to get everything together? Because I think if we do that, he's going to be a really special player. But we'll move forward from that. A ridiculous take by Paul Feinbaum, but I get it. You got to get your clicks, and man, did he get his clicks. Moving forward to Wisconsin and Miami kind of going after each other in the courtroom, weirdly enough, Wisconsin has filed a lawsuit against Miami in the tampering realm. The way that they're describing it is they kind of interfered with a 2-year agreement that they had with Xavier Lucas. Xavier Lucas, if you don't know, very talented safety that was playing at Wisconsin last year, found his way over to Coral Gables this year, is going to probably be a starter for Miami right away. As long as this does not come into play, I don't think it will for his eligibility. But overall, very, very talented player. He found his way down to Miami, and Wisconsin got very mad very quickly. They claim that they met back in December. Xavier Lucas's agent fully denies those rumors that they met in December, and that Miami lured him away with more money. Now, the big thing here to remember, Xavier Lucas is not a part of this case. He is not named in this case. It is more just the case emanated from his recruitment, but he is not going to be in the courtroom. He is not going to be arguing. His agent isn't going to be in the courtroom. This is between Miami and Wisconsin plainly. So just something to keep in mind. He is not going to be a part of this, but the big thing here is Wisconsin just wants compensation. They want compensation for what they had invested into this kid and the money that in some cases they lost because they gave him money maybe, in December or in January, and then he found his way out through the portal. That's obviously something that they're going to fight. Now, Miami's not budging too much on this one right about now. We'll probably hear this one kind of come to fruition before the season starts. I don't know how much is going to come of this. Now, a big thing to keep in mind here is, let's say this doesn't hold up in court. Let's say Wisconsin gets absolutely nothing out of this. Miami's able to walk off scot-free. Maybe teams feel a little bit more comfortable breaking the rules around this house settlement going forward, because this is kind of a precursor to a lot of the stuff that will unfold over the next little bit. I don't think this one will, hit top news. I don't think it'll be crazy stuff, and I think Xavier Lucas will be more than fine. I think Wisconsin and Miami will move about their way here pretty shortly, but it is something to keep your eye out on, and we'll see if it has an impact on what the house settlement is and how enforceable it is going forward. And Jake Retzlaff. Let's talk about this here for a second. Jake Retzlaff has been something that's kind of been brewing over the past probably 2 months. When this first came out, he was accused of sexual assault earlier in this offseason during spring camp. He had not been with the team for the last little bit. And first, the lawsuit has officially been dropped by filing a joint motion. Tends to mean that there was an out-of-court settlement. I don't know the exact details here, but just something to keep in mind as we kind of go throughout this discourse. It does sound like an out-of-court settlement was met between these two parties. The thing to keep in mind here is Jake Retzlaff has essentially said that he's going to leave BYU. If he were to come back to BYU, he would have to face a 7-game suspension. I don't think that's changing anytime soon, even with the lawsuit being dropped and being kind of resolved. I don't think that's changing. So maybe there's a little bit of leeway there, but I don't see him being the starter for BYU. I see him transferring out, having to sit somewhere for this year, and then maybe playing in 2026. And that's something that will unfold over the next little bit. We'll see what happens there. In terms of what happens for BYU going forward, McKay Hillstead coming over from Utah State, Western Michigan transfer Trayson Bourget, who actually started his career at Arizona State, so has played in the Big 12, hasn't played in the Big 12, has played in a big conference before and understands what that's like. And then added Stanford transfer Bear Bachmeier, someone that I tend to think is going to win this job. He was added after spring practice, so that's something to keep in mind. Might not be quite there with the playbook the way that he needs to, but that tends to be the guy that I lean towards, at least in terms of talent, between these three guys to kind of take over for Jake Retzlaff. Regardless, it totally buries BYU for this upcoming season. I really like what BYU is. I think they have plenty of things that they can do really, really well, and they got plenty of really nice things coming in over the next couple of years. We'll get into that when we talk about recruiting next week, but overall, it's not going to be a great team. I frankly did not love this team going into this year with Jake Retzlaff because I think they got away with a lot of things last year, but especially without Jake Retzlaff there, I just don't think this is going to be a huge team in the Big 12. I think probably their Big 12 chances just went up in smoke, and that's what happens every now and then. But Jake Retzlaff, obviously, we'll see where he ends up landing. We'll see how all of this plays out, but he's probably done at BYU, and BYU, you got to find a new quarterback with about a month left before the season. They probably knew they had to find a new quarterback a couple of months ago, but at the end of the day, this is now official, and we'll see what happens here. One upsetting story to another. Harbaugh has officially been added to the Matt Weiss case that dates back a couple of years, actually. Dates back to the right before they played TCU in that in the playoff. There were allegations that came up around Matt Weiss, their co-offensive coordinator at the time with Sharon Moore, and he was someone he faces 14 counts of unauthorized access to computers, 10 counts of aggravated identity theft. Essentially what was happening here is he was hacking into the Wi-Fi of Michigan and going into sensitive information of students, of different athletes, a lot of really gross and disgusting things, frankly. And it sounds like Jim Harbaugh, Warren Manuel, Santa Ono, who is no longer the president at Michigan and tried to find his way down to Gainesville, got denied at the door, actually. But at the end of the day, those three people have been named among about 50 other staffers around Michigan, have been named in the lawsuit now. And essentially saying that they knew about these allegations prior to the TCU game, about 10 days prior is what it sounds like, and they did not do anything. They allowed him to coach that game. They fired him shortly after they lost that game, and they moved forward and hope that it would not hurt Michigan anymore. It might end up hurting Michigan, especially if Warren Manuel is a part of this. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh is no longer a part of the program. Santa Ono found his way out and might have been forced out just a little bit. But at the end of the day, if Warren Manuel is a big-time part, or is any part of this, this could hurt Michigan quite a bit. And frankly, if any of these three people, or if any of the people that are named in this suit knew about this stuff before that game and did not take action, knowing that all this stuff was happening, they should never be allowed near college sports, or really sports, ever again, if I'm being totally honest. Now, I understand how the world works. I understand Jim Harbaugh is not getting fired if all of this stuff unfolds. He's not getting fired by the Chargers. I would argue he should be. But at the end of the day, a lot of stuff still to unfold here. This is all allegations at this very moment. I don't want to bury anyone by any means, but not enough people are talking about this one. I'll just be totally honest. A lot of people are tiptoeing around this issue because it is a very, very intense issue. It is one that is very, very upsetting in its nature. But the reality is, not talking about it is ridiculous to me. So we'll see what happens with Michigan. I don't think this affects Jerome Moore too aggressively now. It hypothetically could if Ward Manuel is involved in this and they have to find a new AD, and then a lot of different things could happen from there. But the reality is, this is just gross. More than anything else, it's just really, really gross. And you hope that none of them are involved. You hope none of them knew beforehand, but they're now in that suit, and we'll see what happens over the next little bit. We'll see if it does come back to hurt Michigan as a whole, not just Harbaugh or Ward Manuel or Santaono, actually hurts the institution of Michigan. We'll see what happens. A lot of stuff around Michigan that I know Sharon Moore and plenty other people around that program just wish was not around, but here we are, and we'll see what happens with it. Definitely a very upsetting thing, and we'll see if there's any repercussions. Finally, on a little bit of a lighter note, Delaware and Missouri State have officially joined the FBS as of yesterday. We have the Delaware Blue Hens, we have Missouri State Bears. They are going to join Conference USA going into next year. Also, another move that now I have it. UMass is actually joining the MAC going into this upcoming year, so that's another movement in the conference realignment kind of world. But this is the big time one. Both FCS programs, very talented, had made the playoff down in the FCS levels at least multiple times in the past 5 years. Missouri State's a really good team with a lot of really fun players. It's Ryan Carty is the head coach for Delaware. Ryan Beard is the head coach for Missouri State. So a couple of Ryans finding their way over. Missouri State did not make things easy on themselves. I can tell you that. They get USC, SMU, and Marshall to open the year. I don't think they're winning any of those games. So I think they're going to start 0-3, but Jacob Clark's a really fun player at quarterback for them. Jamari Robertson at wide receiver. Two very interesting guys to watch, and frankly, they could lose those 3 games and then run the table in the Conference USA, because that is a very doable conference. Now, I don't necessarily expect them to, but the reality is, let's just hope it goes a little bit smoother than it went for Kennesaw State last year with Brian Bohannon, who still shouldn't have been fired. But at the end of the day, let's just hope things go a little bit smoother for these two than it did for that one. But they are ineligible for the postseason, which is, again, an insane rule, ridiculous rule. But that's the reality right now. They could run into a little bit of a JMU problem. If one of these teams can put together a good year, I really like this Missouri State team. I'll look at the Conference USA a little bit closer as we get closer to the season, but I like this Missouri State team. I think they could be a really, really fun team and might just be able to do something special in that conference this upcoming year. But that's all I got for you. We got a million different things that have happened over the last little bit, but that's what I got for the time being. Didn't get into too much actual football as of right now. I promise, once we get into next week, and getting into next week, Mondays and Fridays, all the way throughout July, we're going to do Mondays and Fridays, try to release this thing around 5 p.m. Eastern time on those Mondays and Fridays, just to make it a little bit easier, make sure you guys can watch as readily as you want to, and then when we get into August, might be kicking it up to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because there's a lot of stuff to get into. Took a little bit too long of a hiatus, but we're officially back. It is the month of July. We are 53 days from kickoff of this incredible college football season, and we get Farmageddon to get it started. So cannot wait for that. We're going to get some hot take blogs here coming soon. We're going to get some more niche videos on the site. We'll be playing around with a lot of different stuff. We will be heating things up very, very quickly here, posting blogs daily. Follow me on Twitter at Brzee_Thomas over on Twitter if you want to follow JACFB Podcast, also over there on Twitter if you want to follow there. So a lot of stuff coming down the barrel here pretty soon, but thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all of that incredible stuff. Add any questions you have for me in the comments. I can work them into next week's shows, all that different type of stuff. Do all that, and I'll see you next time.